Hello everyone, my name is Wojciech Waśniewski and you're listening to the Participation Coaching podcast, where I try to explore effective non-performance coaching. So how do we coach beginner, junior and recreational players? My guest today is Nevil Perryman-Best. Nevil is the co-founder of Brighton Junior Golf alongside Neil Plymouth, which is a one-year-old business providing junior golf opportunities for children in Brighton, UK. He's also the director of sales and consultancy at the Junior Golf Alliance, which I've spoken about and written about many times before. It's a very wide-ranging conversation. There's many things we talk about, including Nevil's background and his development as a junior golf coach, creating learning environments and tips for managing behavior, as well as different ways that Nevil runs his coaching sessions. We discuss engaging parents and providing playing opportunities for families. And we spend quite a bit of time discussing the business of junior golf coaching, how he became a full-time junior coach, how can such a business be scaled, and how pricing should be approached. We discuss the lessons he and Neil learned from starting up this new business, starting from scratch in a new area. We talk about school coaching as a product rather than just a marketing strategy. We also discuss the development of the Junior Golf Alliance and what's been going on in the Alliance since I last spoke to Neil. As I said, it's a wide-ranging conversation, and I think there is many valuable bits and pieces for every junior golf coach, as well as some really interesting conversation starters. Let's get into the interview with Nevil Perryman-Best. Nevil, what's your background? How did you start coaching golf? How did you start playing golf? How did you start coaching juniors?
So I was very fortunate that I was brought up in a hot country, which was good, in Spain, by my parents, and we moved there when I was 8 years old. Both my parents were fanatical golfers, so I suppose that was a sort of natural way in. I did what most people do, and I tried to make a kind of fist of playing, which I enjoyed, got to a reasonable standard, a sort of one handicap. But I had a couple of things. I started coaching some children just with a local Spanish pro on a Saturday morning, which I quite enjoyed. And then when I got to the age of 16, I started a very small business cleaning swimming pools because I'd left school. I did that for a couple of years, and then my father kind of was quite honest to me and said, you know, what are you going to do now? And at that point, I had a good look at my options. I then decided to do Camp America, which is where you go over to the States for a season. You live with the children at a camp, you look after them, you deliver all different types of sport. And the place I went to was just outside of New York. And for me, it was a huge step into taking me out of my comfort zone with things, having this sudden responsibility for children's care, being able to teach them soccer, golf, other bits and pieces. And at that point, I realized that it was something I absolutely loved. It probably tied in with the fact that I possibly wasn't going to make a living from playing golf. So I decided, could I be a coach of children? Yes. What's the next move? The next move was to go back to the UK and start my PGA apprenticeship. And that's where things went from there.
So what was your first golf coaching gig?
So I registered as a trainee at a private golf club in Surrey, where I signed up for the PGA. I became an apprentice, and I guess I pursued the same route as a lot of people do by having an attachment to a golf club, working underneath an assistant, underneath the pro, a lot of retail, a lot of different things. But there was an opportunity very early on to where the pro said, look, you can start with a bit of coaching, and the sort of, I guess, the stereotype of what head pros let you do is they let you coach children. So I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me maybe to, particularly as the other guys aren't interested in doing it, to see what I can do, see what I can build. So I started with a couple of children, and then I ended up with, I think, 20 or 30. I was only in the first stages of my PGA first year at that point. But I guess that was a sort of breeding ground for feeling that it was something I thoroughly enjoyed. And perhaps there was a future in coaching children, certainly part-time. It was of interest, and it was something I enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm. And what was the point when you started coaching juniors like full-time?
I mean, there was a big gap then, because my kind of career then was 3 years at that private club. I then kind of started coaching adults because I knew very little about coaching children then, and for me, I don't know what I do now. At that point, I was only charging a couple of pounds for children to come along. I thought that was what was right and what was expected. So there was a lot more money for me to earn coaching adults, and I was getting paid very little in the shop, and I had rent to pay for a bed sit, so I needed to do that. So I then spent a good few years there coaching adults. Yeah, I enjoyed it, building a good sort of client base. And then the head professional there, he bought some land in Sussex. He effectively built a golf course, and he said to me, "Do you want to come? Something new." So I spent the next 11 or 12 years doing that. Everything from mowing fairways to cooking bacon sandwiches, managing people in the shop, retail, everything, coaching adults. But during that period, I started to build a strong program, kind of in my own right. And it was about 2011, 2012, where I first crossed paths with Neil Plimmer, who obviously was a director of Jolf Limited. And at that point, 5-6 years ago, I was starting to question what I delivered to children. Was it good? Could it be better? I was trying to, I guess, create a growth mindset in my own mind to challenge what I was doing. And the answer to that was, no, I could do better. And I don't know a whole lot. And I guess I seeked out Jolf. I found Jolf. And that's when that relationship with Jolf started.
What changed during that period? Like, what did your sessions look like before questioning everything?
I think I suppose I was halfway there. What I did do was I was mindful that there was a bit of a stereotype in the industry of roll-up sessions for children. £3 here, £2 there. And I wanted to do better than that. I wanted to do two things. One is I wanted to provide a better service for people. Therefore, I started to move, I think, towards a games-based approach to learning, rather than simply standing in lines teaching the grip. I was conflicted in my own mind because part of me was like, well, they need to know the grip, they need to know the posture, they need to know this or that. But I liked them playing the games as well. So there was a kind of, I would also very much admit, I think that at that time, I describe it now as I was the court jester. I felt that a high level of excitement. I felt that running races and high fives, and I thought that children needed to love me. That was more about me, as a coach. I needed to be, hey, Nev, the Mr. Popular guy. Everyone likes him. He's a good guy. I know differently now.
So for people who might not know, how would you describe one of the sessions that you run today?
Today, I think is very, very different for several reasons. I think for us, it's more about the environment that we set up. So we would set a certain environment with a certain amount of games and tasks for that session. And for me, a lot of the underpinning learning within that session is based in the games themselves. And it's very much about, I think, a start of a session and a finish. It's about the children understanding the level of behaviour and what we expect from them. It's about managing what we expect from them, so they know the level of behaviour. They know, that we're creating a high standard, whether it be in a school or whether it be in a club. And that will give us the opportunity, I think, of setting the games and tasks for the children, taking a specific moment to connect with an individual child, because for us it's individual children learning at their rate within a group social environment. and also picking moments within that session to bring them all in as a group, sit them down and chat to them. It also, I think, when you create a games-based environment that is organised with the expectancy of behaviour, it also gives you the opportunity to connect with parents within that session, because the children are happy, they're there, they're engaged, absorbed with what's going on. So I do get that chance to then speak to dad, to speak to mum, to connect with the parents, because in my own mind, parents are a huge part of that child's enjoyment and development long term, I suppose. But they should be part of it, and part of it in the way that we would like to see. And that's not dad standing over a child telling him he has to stand with this foot here and hold the club in this way. I think a big part of our role, I feel, is educating parents to support appropriately as well as it is deliver to the children.
I've done quite a few interviews with junior coaches recently, and the importance of structure when working with juniors cropped up quite a lot actually during the recent ones. Do you think it applies to all age ranges, or is it mainly for the smallest kids? And sort of continuing this question, what's the age range that you tend to work with mainly?
Yeah, I mean the age range that there's absolutely no question now that our kind of area is in the UK we would describe as reception key stage 1, 2 and 3. So children from the age of preschool 4, sometimes 3. We try not to label the start age. I'll perhaps mention more about that later, up to the ages of 10, 11 or 12. I think the reason for that is that at the age of 11 or 12, children go on to secondary school. I think that their world changes, their life changes. They have a lot more responsibility probably in education. And I think to a point we probably lose them a little bit at that age. Now, I try and look at things, and we have to, because we do this full time, we have to look at it from a commercial business perspective as well. Because, the only way we can do what we love doing is to be able to pay our bills. So we have to do that. So therefore, if you look at it from a commercial point of view, secondary school is a tough gig because of so many opportunities that these children have. And as I say, other responsibilities. The time for us to get them is between 4, 5, 6 up to the ages of 8, 9, 10. During that period, we know that we can keep them for 3 to 5 years. When those 5, 6-year-olds become 10 or 11-year-olds is the time that we would perhaps hand over, if you like, the reins to the golf clubs that we work with to then have a secondary program. But as far as we're concerned, I think our job is done. We've given them a passion. They've grown a love for the game. They're in the system, if you like, and it's time then for the clubs to step up working with us to provide those future playing and learning opportunities.
So would you say that your role is much more like participation focused, and then the golf clubs would carry on either a participation role or a performance, creating a performance environment?
I do. I think it's an interesting one. And I think this is where it gets very, very complex. I think that, you have to, there is no other way, I don't think, and this is what we try and do with Jolf. We cannot generalise with children, and we can't with adults either. So it is one child on their merits with what they want. It is one mum or dad on their merits with what they want. And it's one family on their individual needs and what they want to get from the game. So does every 11 or 12-year-old want to become a serious golfer and be a member of a golf club? Absolutely 100% not. Some do, but some want to do it as just another activity. So we are one of 8 or 9 activities that they might do, as well as doing karate and judo and anything you can imagine that they do, swimming. But I guess that's all about the skill as the coach of getting to know these individual children, parents and families to understand what it is they want, and as best we can then provide that for them. I think.
How do you cater? Or actually, let's start somewhere else. So after working at Cuckfield with Neil, last year you started Brighton Junior Golf. So what is it right now, and how did the year go?
So yeah, Neil and I started working together at Cuckfield, which is 3 years ago. So we were there for two years before we started Brighton Junior Golf. Now, that was an opportunity for us to test the Jolf model, because I was already delivering it. And we said to each other, right, Cuckfield is a pretty good place. It's got a big catchment area. What can we do with this? Can we use this as I suppose to a point, a kind of testing ground for doing this full time? And also, can we work together? What skills do you have? What skills do I have? Now, fortunately for us, the skills we have are very, very different. So Neil tends to be a little bit more on the delivery side, the more the underpinning of writing the coaching and session plans. I tend to be, as well as delivering, I'm more on the marketing and the sales side. So it's happened that the combination worked very well. And then the time came with Brighton Junior Golf to make the leap to do it full time, which was a huge commitment, because we both still taught adults full time, because that was a big proportion of our income. So to decide that we were going to not teach adults again and purely coach children was a big step, and that's one that we took in December 2016. So we're just over a year in to Brighton Junior Golf. We started with a blank canvas, and we began by negotiating with 2 clubs in Brighton that we would deliver our weekend program from both of their sites, which we started to do relatively successfully. I think the one thing I would learn and would pass on to anybody wanting to do this would be, don't underestimate how difficult it is to begin in a completely new postcode, a new area, because the brutality of it is you don't have credibility in a new area. You are just one more provider of a children's activity, and in Brighton there are 112. So you have to build your credibility. You have to. It's going to take a while to start to get the numbers that you would expect, and it took longer than we thought. What did develop though was we had an approach from a private club in Brighton that said, "Oh, we see what you're doing. Would you be willing to, or we would like to outsource our children's program to you guys? Will you come and do it for us?" And we looked at each other and we thought, well, this isn't in the business model, but this is really interesting. For a private club to say, our pro has a busy retail business, coaches a lot of adults, has responsibility for running club competitions. He probably doesn't have the time, and he possibly doesn't have the skill to do it. Would you do it? And we kind of thought, well, this is fantastic. So we met with the club. They were very much on board with what we were doing. I think they saw what we deliver would be a high standard, and we would do everything from the administration, the marketing, recruitment, retention, connecting with the club in different ways. And I think they saw it as a lot of value for their members to have a good quality program to offer their children and their grandchildren. So we did that successfully, and then two more clubs followed a month later. So within a couple of months we had 5, which was not expected, but it's been quite good, I think.
And what sort of results did you manage to achieve during this year? Like how many kids attend your weekly sessions at the clubs, and like how many sessions a week do you run?
So we now deliver our weekend program is one thing that we do. and it's 40. So we have 14 sessions that run across 5 venues. I think what we have learnt in that time is that it's not about choosing a venue and maximising an amount of children. For instance, saying, right, we need to have 4, 5, 6 classes at one venue. One is that the club possibly don't want that. And the other is that there's a lot of pressure then to feed through lots and lots of children into one club. So we feel now that each club we work at probably has the potential to have 2 full coaching sessions per weekend. So our model from this point forward would be less sessions, more clubs. Mm-hmm. And we would continue with that from this point in 2018. Our other side of things, which is really big, is our schools. So we are now in 16 schools. We have a big change this year. So we built up 16 schools, both delivering during 2017. Our plan for growth and business model for 2018 is that the only way we can grow what we do is if we reduce and ultimately cut out delivering ourselves. There is no other way to build a model than to stop doing it. So we now will look to start employing coaches. We will offer a high level of training for them. We will support them to a high level, and we will make the coaches feel part of something bigger. And then we will start to manage them, train them, and scale what we do. It's obviously all about scales of economy. More schools, getting into more places, and we will look to be in 26 schools by summer term, which is beginning of April, and we will look to be in 50 schools by the end of 2018. Is our model at the moment.
What do the activities in the schools look like? Is it like morning clubs or breakfast clubs and after school clubs, or what's the model there?
We have several different things. We have breakfast and after school clubs, which are generally 45 minutes, which are again a game and task based environment similar to the weekend. The collateral that we use on a weekend are caps and journals, different colour caps with fairly in-depth learning journals. We don't do that in schools, mainly because of the cost implication to that. It's less charge in schools. It's appropriate for it to be, but we do use collateral. We use stickers and sticker books. We have session plans. We have a theme for each week. We have a golden ball that we give out each week as a measure of one child excelling with whether it be safety or listening or working well with a partner, those sort of things. And then we have a play golf experience day where we work very closely with a company called Factory 11 that produce excellent equipment called Golf Park, which are rubber trees, bunkers, water. So we go into we go into schools and we set up a full day for them, or a 2-hour session, perhaps as part of an enrichment in school time, where all of the children will come through and play our golf course that we set up. We set it up in a way that each hole, there are 6 holes, each hole has 3 start points. So we can have up to 60 children, which is 2-year groups, playing at the same time in a safe environment, managed by us. The feedback from headmasters, PE coordinators and teachers with this has been how well that engages less sporty children. So at the moment, we have a sort of ultimate aim of delivering a play golf experience day as a start point in a school, and then setting up an after school club or breakfast club after that, with the recruitment for the club being the play day. So the children love the play day, and then we sell the club as a follow-on from that. And that's starting to work quite well.
And from the business side of things, would that be the school paying for the coaching or parents themselves? They're
very interesting when you look at schools. And again, you know, I call this relatively complex, that you have several things to consider with schools. One is that every single one, a bit like we said earlier, every child is different, every family is different, every school is different. They are managed in different ways. They have different budgets. They have money coming from different places. They have children from completely different backgrounds. So we must, as, and I'm going to say salespeople, because it is, believe me, getting into a school is one of the hardest things to do, because your first point of contact often will be a PE coordinator. They are never available because they are always teaching. So how do you get in? Who do you talk to? How do you word? How do you tone the email? How do you chase it? And you have to be absolutely relentless with it. And once you're in the door, if what you have is good, you can sell it to them, because what they want is reliable service providers, club providers who are there on time, who are smart, who deliver a good product. We try and go, because it's competitive, we try and go a step ahead, and we're always there 30 minutes early. We always connect with parents through a newsletter at the end of each session, so we connect with them in some way. We let the teachers know about good behaviour. We let the teachers know if there's poor behaviour. And we just try and provide something that is of a very high standard, to separate us from the competition. It's a difficult thing to do, but it's great.
I think it's an interesting way. Like most coaches, and I think the majority of people I've spoken with for this interview series, like they treat school coaching as a means to an end, as a way to just to do some marketing for the weekend program or junior program in the club. But it's actually, if you think about it, from the school's point of view, it's a valuable product, and I think you're just showing that it can be a product itself, not just a means to an end.
That is a very, very good point, Floyd. I think, and it's something we've learnt, possibly the hard way, is that when you look at things, if you call it a product, which ultimately it is, or it's a coaching session, what is it? First of all, is what you're doing, the standard is high? If the answer to that is yes, then that is worth what people will pay for it. This is obviously how business works. Now, do you have to charge £2 or £3 or £4 per child in a school for a club? The answer to that is no. The answer is you can charge what they will pay for it. Now, it's possible that in a school, parents will pay £6 for a child's club, based on 10 weeks. So it'll be a £60 term. And if you can get 14 to 16 children, you can obviously then work out that it's a sustainable, pretty good model, as you say, that sits on its own. I think that we just have to, if what we're doing is good, we deserve to earn from it. We really do. And the thing is that if we don't charge, other people are charging for it, and they're charging reasonable amounts. And our model is on scale, is based purely on, we want to deliver something good. We want the coaches to do a good job for themselves and for us. And we have to make a margin. And I know what my margin is, and I know the amount of children it takes. And the reality is that if the numbers aren't good enough, we go on to one of the other 28,794 schools there are in England.
Is there something, apart from working with private clubs, is there something else that you, at the beginning of the year, you thought will work out, and it turned out it didn't, like something you planned for the Brighton Junior Golf, but you had to change your mind on?
I think sort of lessons we've learned, you mean? Do you mean? Yeah, I think one is what I said earlier, was that what we initially thought was we were in a very busy place in our Cookfield where we were before, and it was a great place. the thing is that we were based there and we didn't move around. So every single person that came through the door, we were there to talk to. So we had unbelievable numbers. We had 160 children every single weekend. Now, the mistake that we made was to think we could then duplicate that across double the amount of sites in Brighton. But then the thing was, we were watering ourselves down. We were no longer in one site to market ourselves, connect with people all the time. So that was our biggest mistake, is we didn't hit the numbers we thought we could at the start, because we didn't realise we'd be in more venues doing less sessions. And that was an interesting learning point. And yeah, there've been quite a number of others, I think, during our first year. And the biggest probably is valuing what we do. That is our biggest thing, and we've had help with that. We've had people look at it and say, well, what are you charging? And some of the reaction has been, you're crazy, you need to charge more. What you do is good, and it's not, I'm not saying it's amazing. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and we have enormous amounts of lessons to learn in what we deliver, but what we think we do is pretty good, and we can charge for it. And that's the mistake we made early on, is we weren't charging enough. And I think if you don't charge enough as well, is you possibly lose some credibility. If you can go into anywhere, a school or a club, and say, do you know what, we've got a really good thing here, this is what we charge, because the standard is high, and that's seen as, well, they must be pretty good. Interesting.
Where do you think the business is going to go? Let's say, for example, what's your goal in terms of the percentage of your business coming from school coaching and sessions at the golf clubs?
Yeah, our initial focus at the moment is 100% is schools.
Okay.
So our focus now, really mainly for this year, is to recruit. So one of us, because there's two of us in the business, one of us, myself, I will sell to schools. I will meet with them, organise meetings, try and get in, then try and make sure that the numbers of children are good within each session that we do, and if they're not, look at targeted promotions, bring a friend along. Here's a golden ticket for a free taster. Make sure those numbers are good, and then my business partner will be recruiting and training coaches to deploy across the different schools that I sell to. So we are, if you like, a recruitment and training of coaches company from this point.
Okay,
that's what we are.
It's interesting. As you said, it's probably the only way to scale the business in a good way and bring the valuable product as it is, like golf coaching in the way you do it. It's definitely valuable, not only for the parents but for golf as well. So have you reached your maximum capacity as the two of you for, let's say, at the moment right now?
Yeah. So we already have another person. So Neil and I are fully booked with what we do. We can't really do, well, we can't. There's only a certain amount of clubs you can run at the same time, obviously. So we now have one other coach who is part-time for us. We have somebody else coming on board very soon, and we're now actively looking for two further coaches. These I think, will be part-time people at the moment. And yeah, so the thing is for us is that we can provide work for 1 day a week, 2, 3, 4. So we're quite keen to, as much as kind of say to people, we'll put you through the training, we'll support you. We're also keen to work with them and tick the boxes for what they need to do. They may have another job they want to work around. They may be a student. They may be in education in certain parts of the day. I think there's a lot of flexibility for recruiting very different types of people. And that's what we're interested to do.
Am I right in saying, like, following the social media, that you had a golf club under your management during last summer? Is that right?
Oh crikey! We run it's mad. We run a pitch and putt golf course in Hove Lagoon, which is a very busy place for the summer season. So it's an opportunity that we stumbled across. So some people who run all the amusements in Brighton, it's a very busy place. They do trampolines, they do crazy golf, they do pedlos. They've been in the business all their lives, and part of their deal, if you like, is having this pitch and putt golf course on the seaside. And we bumped into them, and they said, "Do you want to work for us? Do you want to run this for us?" In a sort of joint venture, I suppose you'd call it. And we thought, well, we're doing everything else, we might as well try. So that's a very interesting model as well, because I started and I was absolutely obsessed with it. Having families come along, because it's a very busy place and it almost has an iconic following, because there's a famous DJ that you will know, Fatboy Slim, who owns the cafe beside it. So all his memorabilia is up, and this cafe has 1,000 customers a day in the season, and the pitch and putt golf course is right beside it. So there's a great opportunity to get people playing, and then I came up with the idea of doing foot golf as well. So we do that down there. The factor of the matter is that it was far too time consuming for me. That was taking my eye off the ball with what we needed to do with Brighton Junior Golf. So the model there now is we staff it with students, because it's a really pretty good fun job. They can take the money and they can sit outside on a chair and enjoy the sunshine and read and learn, watch YouTube. They can do what the hell they like, as far as we're concerned, as long as they take the money, and they connect with people nicely, and they give them out the flyers of the other stuff that we do, and then it's just a place people come and play pitch and putt and foot golf, and it's just quite nice to have it. But it's not enormously profitable, but it's another, I suppose you'd call it another very modest till.
That's pretty cool, actually.
It is cool. Yeah.
So let's move on to the Junior Golf Alliance, because it's probably closely related to what you do now. How has things been going on that end during the last year?
Yeah, it's been good, I think. As you know, I think being a member yourself, it provides several things. The reason that we started it was, I think, a couple of years ago at the time, we felt that, and it was after a trip to America, delivering at the World Youth Summit there, we kind of came back thinking, well, do you know what? I don't think it's right to sell Jolf at the moment. The industry doesn't need another program rammed down its throat, for want of a better expression. Another Try Golf or another Bite Size. It needs perhaps a form of education and just a platform for like-minded coaches to share their experiences and better themselves in that way. Maybe we can sell the program further down the line, but we came to the conclusion that we wanted to provide some training for coaches to be able to deliver what they deliver, whatever that might be, more successfully. And we're very lucky to have a guy who you will know, Jonathan Shipstone, who was one of the original founders of Jolf with Neil. Incredibly knowledgeable man, who was able to write the education e-learning for us, and provide the Facebook page as a platform to share, and offer a very modest joining fee for just £50 a year, and it's something that we're pleased that we've done. It's not really a business. It's just a place, I think, where great coaches from anywhere around the world can come together. And we've sold a number of courses, and the feedback has been very positive with the e-learning from the guys that have joined. And I think it's myself, I found it very useful to connect with people in the States, with people in Singapore and Malaysia and over here, and just share stuff. I don't think we do enough of that. And there's so much we can learn from each other free by it's barter. It's I'll tell you a bit about what I'm doing, and you tell me a bit about what you're doing, and perhaps we can help each other in some way. I think we'd admit that it hasn't had the scale we'd hoped it had, which is a little disappointing. I think the training is really, really good, and I think it has a lot to offer. But we know that coaches are very busy men and women, and particularly the guys that are doing it part-time, they're also doing it alongside their retail, alongside their playing, alongside their coaching adults. And they all also have their own ideas, a lot of which are very good. So it's bubbling away, and it's something we want to continue to do. But for us, it absolutely has to be something we do part-time, because we keep it going.
I hope so, because it's certainly been very useful for me. Both sides, as you said, like the e-learning. First of all, I think by the time this interview is out, my little review of all the courses, I've completed them recently, should be out on the blog as well as the Facebook group. That's really useful, just to connect with other coaches, to ask questions, to look at what other people struggle with. That's been awesome, and I really hope more people join so that the group grows and everyone gets a lot out of it. Actually,
it's great to get that feedback. And we'll continue to add in as well some ideas in the future for different courses, different things that may arise. And I hope the demand is there so we can keep it going. Really, we'll see.
Going back to the participation performance question very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you, or will you cater, or how do you cater for the more performance focused kids at the moment? And are you planning to develop that side of your coaching this year as well?
I would say that a very, very interesting question. I think, do we cater for them? Possibly not. I think that again is, as I said to you for the reasons earlier, that our main area is from say 3. I would like to come back to that, by the way, before we finish, just when children should start. Up until the age of 11 or 12. I think that I think you can't do everything, probably, and I think that there's a lot going on at the ages of 12 and above, children developing at that level, that that's, as I say, when they're in the system, in the club, or they're in their county coaching, and there's a lot of really good stuff going on. I think that it's not something that, what we do want to do, and we are mindful, is to create more playing opportunities, appropriate playing opportunities for children. They're not necessarily competitive, just playing experiences. So the 5 golf clubs that we have, continuing to build a good relationship with them, so that we can say, look, we want to organise a little playing experience for mum, dad, son and daughter, where they go out and play. And again, it's an area you could talk hours for, because the complexity involved in managing a family golf experience is unbelievable. You can imagine, for a moment, son, daughter, mum and dad going onto the first hole, to play golf. You can just imagine, an hour and a half later, mum's absolutely shattered. One of the children is tired. Everyone's got a bit annoyed. People behind are wanting to play through. But the thing is, there are very simple solutions to it. An example might be, as you all know, scaled golf courses playing a shorter golf course. Something that we do that's very simple is mum, dad, and children share a golf ball. So they have a number from 1 to 4. Dad's number 1, son's number 2, daughter's number 3, mum's number 4. They share a ball and they walk quickly and they play a shorter golf course. And then all of a sudden, nobody holds anybody up because there's only one ball in play. And they've had, maybe they come in, we say, look, come in after 5 holes, have a hot chocolate, 1 hour positive experience, like bowling or like something else that they do. And then they want to do it again. But again, we have to manage, educate those expectations of parents of how to get themselves around the golf course in a way that will create maximum enjoyment for them. Sorry, completely gone off what you asked me.
No, but it was actually very interesting because we didn't really talk about the family experiences and playing experiences. So that's been really useful. But I think that sort of shows as well that the participation side of things is what you focus on, both as a business and as coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we can just get many more children into it, and parents who are on board and engaged, and obviously together becoming families, and in it, that stay in it for some time. Create this love for the game, and then you would hope that if they do drop off, they have enough great positive memories to come back at some point, or they become part of the golf club system. Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
So let's go back to the age groups because you said that you're quite flexible at what age kids start playing golf. So what are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, again, another very interesting area, and something that I thought about a couple of years ago is that, and you'll know, nearly all clubs have a starting age. Whenever you look at a flyer, you say it says from 4 and above. I was trying to put my 2 girls into camps for half term coming up, and Phoebe is 4, and they said, well, we don't take them until 5. Which is annoying. But anyway, understand that they have their reasons. But we used to label it as well, and we would say 4 and above. And then I said to Neil, I said, what are we doing? Why are we labeling this? Because we are contradicting everything we say based on the fact that it's each individual child on their own merits with their unique situation in their family. Meaning that if we have parents that are engaged as we would hope, which is another subject, parents' engagement. It may be that a 2.5, 3-year-old is ready because mum or dad are there. The child's connected well with it. They may come for less time. They might do 20 minutes, half an hour, but that individual child might be ready. And then we may have a 5-year-old like my daughter who wasn't ready. So we took the label out. We took the kind of the age group out, and we now say to people, when do you start them? And we say, don't know. It depends. Come and see if it works, if we're happy, if they connect with it, if you're around, let's see, and we'll know. We'll know after a session if they're ready, and if they're not, we'll come back at a later point. But as you know, children develop at completely different rates and are subjected to different environments, different things at school, different ways of being brought up at home. So I don't think it's for us to pigeonhole them into ages. And I would also say with preschool children, it's a very easy area to say, nope, too difficult, not doing it. And it's not a question of are preschool children ready for golf? It is, are coaches ready, and are they manned with the skills to coach preschool children? And are the parents ready to bring preschool children to sessions? So what I mean by that is I've had plenty of parents that have turned up and there's a 3-year-old, and after 30 seconds or a minute, he starts picking up and throwing the balls, and the parent will be like, oh, God, I'm so sorry, he's not listening. And we'll say, he's 3 or she's 3. They're not going to listen. It doesn't matter. Let them wander off. As long as they're safe, they'll wander off and then they'll come back, and it's absolutely fine. But the question definitely is with young children is not are they ready? They're always ready. It's are we ready as coaches, and do we have the skills to manage behaviour of preschool children, because they will always be ready.
Would you bring the same flexibility to the groupings in general? Like when you run coaching sessions at the clubs, would you have, let's say, clear divisions between the groups, or would you have the same flexibility there?
We do two things. It's a very, very interesting question. Is one is that I think on a weekly basis, considering children are coming anything from 30 to 40 weeks of the year, I think it's only appropriate to put them in similar age groups. And for us, that's 4 ages. It's reception, key stage 1, key stage 2, key stage 3. Because with the best will in the world, you will sometimes get 8 or 9 or 10-year-olds who don't want to play with a 4 or 5 or a 6-year-old, and they might want to now and again, and some of them will absolutely thrive on it. But a lot will, I think it's fair to say, on a week on, week out basis, want to engage in activity with children of a similar age. Having said that, in camps, we deliberately do the opposite. During camps, because they are one-off opportunities or a series of 2 or 3 days, it works beautifully to mix the ages. So we'll have some older children partnering, helping, working with younger children. And I think because it isn't week in, week out, I think that's a novelty for them. And I think they engage and they really react well to it. I'm not sure they would do if you did it every single week.
Actually, I've never heard this sort of division before. That's interesting. Is there something else that you think we should talk about that might be useful for coaches listening? I think it's been very interesting, especially on the business side, what we discussed so far. But maybe there's something that you want to touch on.
I think there's a couple of things. The first thing I would say is when it comes to parents, and I keep using it, I apologise, the word complexity, but if you look at parent involvement or participation as a subject, it's a huge part of what we do. If you now look at a weekend session, you will see as many, sometimes more parents actively involved and engaged in the session as you will children. And they're engaged and involved in the way that we would like to see them, playing alongside, not standing there telling a child to lift his back foot up when he swings through, because we've educated them otherwise. My point is that when you look at parent engagement, we identified 8 different levels of parent engagement. It looks 8 different ways. So you have mum who turns up on a Saturday morning with child, with 2 siblings attached to her arm, and dad's doing something else, working perhaps, or the other way around, of course. It could be dad and mum's working. Will that mum come and get involved in the session? No, she can't. She's got 2 siblings, it's freezing cold, never going to happen. Does it mean she's less willing to? No, it doesn't. And then you have mum or dad who come along. They both have a full-time job. The only 35 minutes of one-to-one time that they get is that time where the child is with us. So they have a coffee together and they put the world to rights for 35 minutes. Does that mean that they're not as involved? No, it doesn't at all. Then you have mum and dad are not together anymore. Single parenting. And then the dad gets there and he's in a right mess because he's 10 minutes late for the children's party. He's got to take the other one too, and he's worried about getting back. Does it mean they're less involved? No, it doesn't. And then we have mum and dad both come along, both get involved in the session. So every area is complex, but the point is we have to learn, understand the needs of each individual parent, get to know them, understand the way that they're likely to get involved. And if they can't, it doesn't mean they don't want to. It's just an interesting area, I think. And my second point, I think, was for any a lot of great stuff going on out there, I know, in terms of children's coaching, and there's a lot of people, I think, that choose and do just a little bit. There's others that do quite a lot. For anybody that has a desire to do it full time, I would say it is difficult, but it is also possible. And my sort of bullet points, I think, purely from what we've learned so far, would be look at every aspect of what you do. Look at how you connect with parents. Look at what it is you're delivering, how good it is. Record your retention. Look at the ways that you recruit. Absolutely value what it is that you do, and price it accordingly. And then when it comes to children or schools or golf clubs or families, don't generalize into different groups. Treat everyone as an individual entity, and they will all be different. And it's difficult doing that, because you have to have so many different conversations. But what it will all end up doing, I think, is that if you do have that growth mindset of every single person, every single club, every single school is different, is what you will end up with after a period of time is an unbelievably high level of retention, from 95% upwards, which of course is fantastic, because that will lead to the participation levels that the PGA, England Golf, Sport England, Golf Foundation want to see. It will also mean that you earn more money doing it, so you have more opportunity to do it full time rather than doing it part time. So in that respect, it's a win-win. It's a very difficult thing to do, but don't fall for people saying you can't make money from junior golf, and that it's our way of giving back, because I would say that is incorrect, and it's a myth.
Going back to what you said about parents, it's been very interesting for me to when talking to different coaches, and they're all expert coaches, very successful businesses and as coaches, and this. Well, I've asked this question a lot about, like, what's the role of the parents in your programs, and it's been very interesting to see how different it is across the board, depending on the culture they're in, but depending on the country, depending on their just coaching philosophy in general. Anything from keeping the parents away from the kids a certain distance at every session, up to what you do with parents playing along almost during every session. That's very interesting.
I think that obviously is a big subject, and I'm well aware, of course, as you mentioned there, Lloyd, the cultural differences in places, of course, and I think the thing is that it is unbelievably difficult and takes a huge amount of time to drip feed the information to the parents of how you see their involvement. I would say it takes 2 to 3 years, or it may take one simple conversation, depending very much on the parents. But getting parents to come along for the first time, we've had a session a month ago with a new coach where he had 10 new children, 10 new parents. The amount of work to do there, not only with the children, but to start the conversation going. How do you start a conversation with a dad who is a 3 handicap golfer when he brings his child for the first time and says to them, why aren't you teaching him the grip? He's got to stand this way. He's got to understand. You have to start that conversation. And in order to start that conversation, you've got to be really comfortable with where you're at as a coach. And I know that earlier on, I found it unbelievably difficult to have those conversations and to gently drip feed them. Do you know what? You have a little stand back and just kind of watch and observe and see how we do things, and we'll tell you why we're doing things, and we'll get you back involved and playing alongside. But these are the reasons why we're telling them not to use the overlap grip, is because we're asking them to explore many different ways of doing stuff, so that they can end up with a broad skill set and not just a few skills. it's all very involved, and it takes time. It really does.
That's a crucial point, I think. You sort of, it's not like you invite parents and they behave perfectly. You teach them how to behave in a way that you think is appropriate for the children and for what you do during the sessions.
I think it is. I think there's no question we'll also lose some. I think there will always be some parents. I, of course, would it's not there. It's fine, but there will always be some that perhaps with what they've been taught, what they've been grown up, what they've seen, most likely from perhaps traditional coaching is, well, they need to learn the aim, they need to be taught the grip. When do they learn the grip? When do they learn the posture and the etiquette and everything else? And our answer sometimes might be, well, we may never teach them the grip. They may get it as they go. They may develop something on their own, or we may just give them the opportunity to try and get there themselves. Now, you will always have a percentage of parents that will say, I'm not sure about that. That's not for us. And I used to take that very badly. God, we've lost a couple, they didn't get it. And now you have to follow your own beliefs, whatever they might be. And you will lose some, but I think the ones that stay and the high level of retention certainly makes up for that.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Nevil, thank you very much for taking the time and doing this interview. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and there are many valuable bits for all coaches out there. Thank you very much.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you for the chat. It's been fantastic.
This is Wojciech again. Thanks for listening. If you don't want to miss any future episodes in this junior series, subscribe to the podcast or sign up to the mailing list. You can find all the links on ParticipationCoaching.com/subscribe. If you have any suggestions on future guests or just any feedback on the podcast in general, feel free to shoot me an email at hi@ParticipationCoaching.com. Thanks for listening again, and I'll hear you next time. Music in this episode came from bensound.com.